So, I know this happened a couple of days ago, but there's this thing between Stephen A. Smith and Russell Westbrook where after Westbrook put up a monster stat line in a Wizards win, Stephen A. went on First Take the next day and said he wasn't that impressed and, it should be about winning a championship for Russell Westbrook and that the stats didn't matter because Westbrook didn't win or hasn't won a championship. And then in a very similar time period, after Aldridge and Griffin signed with the Nets, it was Aldridge recently, Stephen A. said he was irritated by this and that he just wasn't happy about it, superstars teaming up like that. I know Aldridge isn't a superstar anymore, but he is a big name player. So I just thought I'd give my thoughts on this. So Westbrook, that stat line was 35 points, 14 rebounds, and 21 assists. Broke all sorts of records. I mean, I have Westbrook in my fantasy team, and it was amazing. And it's not like these were empty stats or in a loss or anything. These were in a close win versus a good team in the Pacers. They needed almost all of his stats down the stretch, and it was without Bradley Beal too. So a very impressive game from Westbrook. He also shot 4 of 6 from 3, and one of the best games of his career and one of the best games this season. And then Stephen A. said, it doesn't matter. And again, this was against an Eastern Conference rival, a team that the Wizards hypothetically would be competing for a play-in spot with. And Stephen A. said it didn't matter because he hasn't won a ring. And the first thing would be that, just because Westbrook hasn't won a ring in the past, he can't go back in time. He can't change that. And, it hasn't always been Westbrook's fault. I know last year he was injured against the Lakers and he didn't play well. And, I don't want to go through all of them, but there've been losses to the Jazz and Portland, but they weren't really realistically winning the championship in all those years. And then with the KD and Russ era, some of it, they did blow a 3-1 lead to the Warriors, but some of those were just, Game 6 Clay. And then also, it was neither Westbrook nor KD's fault. It was really that, there was really nothing else around them. They had 6-man Harden for a few years. They had Ibaka and Steven Adams, but that was it. Apart from that, it's guys like Andre Roberson and Thabo Cephalosha, and I can't even remember that many names on those teams going up against really good competition. So Westbrook isn't really to blame for that, and sure, he could have gone differently in his career, but he's not really to blame for not having a championship. That's just, there's 30 teams, only one team can win. So that's sort of a problem there. And then he also said, when you're making $50 or $41 million a year, you should be competing for championships or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But that also, I don't see it because what was Westbrook going to do? Not accept that contract extension from the Thunder after winning MVP? So that one, I just don't get. So that's sort of my thoughts on the Westbrook thing, where, yes, he doesn't have a championship, but so do other great players. And, that's says more about the circumstance. And also, some players just aren't good enough to be the best player on a championship team. And I think, unfortunately, Westbrook falls into that category. This is the thing with Westbrook is he's not really built to be a complementary option. He needs the ball in his hands to be effective most of the time. He's not a good shooter. Sometimes he can be a good defender, but he's not an all-defense caliber player on that end, where he's really at his best when he is controlling the game, when he is taking as many shots as he wants, when he, I wouldn't say the many shots thing, but when he's controlling the game, when he's handling the ball, when he's creating for others, getting to the rim, attacking downhill. And that doesn't fit as well with other superstars. So he's more primed to be a second or third option when he's really built like a number one option. With that being said, they did get close a few times, and I still think you can win with Westbrook as a complementary option, but he's maybe just not maximizing how good he can be in that as a complementary piece. But still, and then moving on to the Aldridge and the Nets teaming up, and the buyout thing, it kind of irritates me too. But then again, you have to remember there's a reason these players are being bought out. They're not what they used to be, and also you can't really blame them when they're free agents, wanting to go to a situation where they can win a ring, because if they don't have a ring when they retire, they're going to be known as a loser, when really there's just someone who didn't win an NBA championship, but has been consistently competing at the highest level, and that's just very unfair. But then they go to a team where they have a good chance of winning a ring, and they get criticized. Would Westbrook's stats mean more if he was on the Nets right now, instead of the Wizards? So that just doesn't sit right with me. Just how players are constantly criticized for not winning and not having a championship, and then they put themselves in a situation to do that, and they're still criticized. You just can't win sometimes in those situations. Only 1 out of 30 teams can win, as I mentioned, and that means that some players, despite their greatness, won't end up with a championship. I think a great example of this is Damian Lillard. Obviously, he still has time in his career, but Dame is a winner. He, his style leads to winning. He plays hard on every possession, and he's also a very loyal superstar, staying with Portland all these years, competing for MVPs this year. But if Dame spends the rest of his career in Portland, which is possible, and if they, don't win a championship, which is also very possible, he might be known as a loser when his career retires, when, that just isn't it, that he never had the pieces around him. He never teamed up with another superstar. But if Damian Lillard were to team up with another superstar, hypothetically, I don't think he will, then he would also be criticized for, creating a super team or, getting carried. And, they just can't win either way in that situation. So I just think it's a bit unfair, though. And then one more Stephen A. take from this week or whatever, for, while I'm on the topic. I think he said that, he blames LeBron for players teaming up, and that's the notion. It might not have been from Stephen A, but it's from other it's apparently a thing that super teams have just been created in the past decade or so. The LeBron teaming up, superstars have teamed up for many, many years now. If you think way back to the Wilt Chamberlain joining the Lakers with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor back in the 60s and 70s. And it's happened all throughout history. Kareem going to the Lakers. There's plenty more examples. Rodman going to the Bulls. The Big Three in Boston. Shaq and Kobe, it was sort of a natural thing, but, Shaq leaving the Magic for the Lakers, and then Gary Payton and Karl Malone joining the Lakers. There have been so many super teams throughout history. I might make a video on the history of super teams, but, it certainly hasn't, it didn't start with LeBron and the Heat. Maybe it stopped. It didn't start, but maybe it reaccelerated to stop LeBron when he was on the Cavs with the Boston Big Three. But it certainly didn't stop with LeBron. And there's many other factors of the modern NBA that have led to superstars teaming up more now, in terms of the amount of talent in the league, how contracts are structured, and then also this pressure to win a championship, or else be criticized and known as someone who didn't, and no one wants that on their legacy. So that has led more to the super team thing than LeBron, in my opinion. and then also just the constant connection to fans on social media, that sort of thing. So those are sort of my thoughts on random sort of associated subjects from Westbrook and Stephen A. and all that type of stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys.